So for me, it is very helpful to see the audience. So if anybody is able to switch on the camera, that is helpful for me. But if you are not able, that's fine also. It's just helpful to see the reactions or how people are going. Wow, then I can also see people who I know. Okay, so being the rains retreat, in the middle of the rains retreat, I thought this is a good subject for all of us, knowing that all around the globe, there are so many monastics spending a lot of time in seclusion, a lot of time in meditation. So it is a really good time for all of us, all of you as well, to take the opportunity to spend more time and hook into this really lovely energy that is being generated. And so therefore I thought it is nice to talk about seclusion. And also maybe I thought it is quite nice to talk about that given the situation in Sri Lanka as well. So, we can get a bit of a perspective and also see why seclusion becomes even more relevant to our lives these days. So before I get into the topic of seclusion, I also wanted to say something else a little bit, that is, what is it that all of us are searching for in life, whether monastics, whether spiritual seekers, or anybody from the general public? Everybody's looking for happiness and peace, right? Everybody's looking for that. Everybody wants this. But what does the world usually tell us? The world usually tell us, if you get a good education, get a good job, get a good family, all of those things outside is going to give us happiness and peace. And that is what most people are searching for. And this is when it has also become a bit of a problem for people right now. So before I mention that, I want to say something. There was a young man who came to the monastery in his 20s. So he said, like, he was very young when he migrated with his family to Australia. And he was very fortunate to have very loving parents. And he was an only child. And he had very good education. By now, he's already been working as a top accountant for about a decade. And he's got everything. He's got a house, he's got an investment property, he has everything. And he's still not even 30 years of age. But he was a bit lost, and he was asking, so like for my parents, when they came, for them, the purpose of their life was to build up a career, migrate to Australia, get a good job, get a house, look after the family. All of those things were what they were looking forward to. And they spent quite a few decades doing that, and looking forward to those things sort of gave them a meaning of life. So he was relating in that way and saying, for me, I was in a way lucky. Everything just fell on my lap. Everything I just got so quickly. My parents gave it to me. It was so easy for me. And now I'm just seeing, what's the purpose of life? He was a bit lost. He was really sincerely lost. So, and I don't think he's the only one. I feel like this is quite a common thing with many young people, especially these days when, people's the whatever they look for, this is instant gratification, right? Things are very fast these days. With the press of few buttons, you can have whatever you want. And then people are actually looking for, so they don't have anything to look forward to. Of course, this is not the real purpose, but most people who are not in the spiritual path really look for a purpose in life with material things. And they soon realize, once you achieve various things, you're still not really satisfied, not really happy, and they're still looking for. And for some people, it has taken a long time, a whole lifetime to achieve things. So by the time they realize, it's a bit too late. But these days, quite a few young people are realizing that material things are not really bringing that happiness and peace that they promise you. So they start to question this. And also currently the situation in Sri Lanka, also with the economic crisis, also people are realizing, wow, it is a lot of suffering when we try to look for our happiness from outside, because you can't do much about it. You finally realize how difficult it is, to deal with these things that are out of your control if you don't accept, because not everybody's got the right view, like the Ujjuka Ditti, where they align their view with the reality. Most people think, no, I can control my life. Things should be permanent. This kind of, crisis, economic instability shouldn't happen to me, to my country. These things we never expected, right? But they do happen. So that shakes us. And then you feel like a lot of people are suffering. I'm sure you hear the laments and the despair of people, how they talk about, when they align their happiness, when they look for happiness in outside. So just to sort of, I'm sure all of you know this, but this is really beautiful simile by the Buddha. Like, this is the dog who's hungry. So it is like we are all kind of hungry and we are looking for something. We are looking for happiness. So it's like this dog at the butcher's shop, waiting and waiting there to have a meal. But what does the dog get? A well-hacked, well-cleaned piece of bone, smeared with blood. So the dog just sucks on it, tries to eat it, and gets a little bit of flavor. It has the flavor of meat because it's smeared with blood. So then it gets a little bit of satisfaction. But of course, that time it doesn't fulfill, right? You don't feel full. So you're still hungry. So then you run to the next shop. Again, the same thing happens. You keep running. So this is like us, or people who are in the world, who are looking for happiness and peace from outside, from the sensual world. It is like this dog who's hungry, running from one butcher shop to the next. You never feel satisfied, never feel full. But there is a small gratification that is not denied. There is something, but it is not. When this becomes very obvious, when this becomes very clear, then people, wise people who are on the spiritual path, they really start to look for happiness and peace within. So this is when inclining the mind to seclusion becomes important for us. Because otherwise, when the life is going well, when we are really busy running after, chasing after things, there is no time for seclusion, right? People say, I have no time to meditate. I have no time to go on a retreat. I have even no time to just, sit down and have a cup of tea peacefully in your backyard. People are so busy chasing after things. What are these things that we are all chasing after? They're chasing in the wrong direction. So sometimes, like especially for the whole world, these last 2 years, also with the COVID, it became quite obvious, that we are actually chasing behind, just like this dog, behind something that is completely useless. Yeah. So therefore, once you actually start to realize this, then seclusion becomes really relevant to our lives. It becomes really important. And there is happiness and peace to be had in our lives. So we just need to look for it in the right place. So this is where inclining our mind and inspiring our mind to seclusion becomes so helpful, such a benefit. Finally, you will start to have a good meal. Finally, like the hungry dog will have a good meal and will feel satisfied. So, it is really important for us to think in this way. So what is seclusion? So in Pali, the word is viveka. Right, and the Buddha talks about at least in 3 different ways the viveka. So one of the vivekas is the actually really going into the forest. Like we know, whenever the Buddha mentions about deep meditation, he says aranyagatova, rukkamulagatova, sunyagaragatova. So that is really literally going into a forest, to a foot of a tree, to an empty hut. So this kind of physical seclusion is one of the seclusions. So Buddha mentions about going on retreat, even he himself going on retreat from time to time, to the days abiding into seclusion. So every sutta you find this word coming up again and again. So physical seclusion is one. The second type is chitta viveka. And Chitta Viveka almost always refer to the deep meditative states. That is when the mind is free from the hindrances. So technically, mind getting into jhanas. So that's the second type of seclusion. And the third type of seclusion that comes up is the Upadiviveka. And that is the mind completely free from defilements. That is, of course, when people are starting to get the attainments and removing the fetters stages by stages, then you get into this Upadiviveka state as well. So I would like to first talk a little bit about the various types of seclusion and the idea of seclusion, and what the Buddha to be when he was a bodhisattva, what he thought about seclusion. Because, even though we think that seclusion, sometimes when we think about seclusion, like the word viveka is also comes up in Sinhala, it's like being relaxed, being at ease, being in a peaceful place. This is quite delightful for people who are practitioners, right? We like this thing. However, when we try to do it, it's not always that easy, right? It's not that easy sometimes to find the time, to find a good place, and also to actually start meditation, right? Even though we want it, sometimes it is difficult. And why is it difficult? And it was not only for us. This is so beautifully mentioned, so we don't have to feel too bad. This is the Buddha himself, before he became enlightened, in his last life. He mentions this in Anguttara Nikaya, if you want to look up. It's on Sutta in the book of 9, Sutta number 41, called Tapussa Sutta. This is just a small extract from that I will read out. It says, before my enlightenment, while I was just a bodhisattva, not yet fully enlightened, it occurred to me, too, good is renunciation, good is solitude. Yet my mind did not launch out upon renunciation and become placid, settled, and liberated in it. Though I saw it as peaceful, it occurred to me, why is that my mind does not launch upon renunciation and become placid, settled, and liberated in it, even though I see it as peaceful? Then it occurred to me, I have not seen the danger in sensual pleasures and have not cultivated that insight. I have not achieved the benefit in renunciation and have not pursued it. Therefore, my mind does not launch upon renunciation and become placid, settled, and liberated in it, though I see it as peaceful. So this little extract really shows our problem, right? Sensual desires. That is what the world is chasing after, thinking that we are getting happiness, but it is directly opposing seclusion. So if we are wanting to incline our mind towards seclusion, then it is quite important to actually see the danger in sensual pleasure. So this is one of the things that I wanted to bring up. If we want to incline our mind, it is important to take some time to see the gratification. So we acknowledge yes, there is a gratification in having your favorite food or listening to music, but then also you see the danger in that as well, and how it affects our mind, how it takes away our peace, how it makes it difficult for us to meditate when we want to meditate. So once we teach our mind like that, when we do this kind of reflection, slowly but surely, the mind slowly lets go of these sensual delights, the sensual pleasures, and instead look for something more refined, like, pleasures of the mind, in the sense, the pleasures of a mind being free from hindrances, a mind that is alert, a mind that is happy, a mind that is free. So when we think like that, it becomes, it is inspiring. And it is really important, because why is seclusion so important? And I'm sure you all know your suttas really well. And if you read the suttas, you can see everywhere it mentions that all the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, or all the 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas, every factor is to be developed. What does it say? Viveka nisitang, viraga nisitang, nirodha nisitang, vasaga parinami. So each one of these factors are to be developed based on seclusion, right? Based on relinquishment, fading away or non-attachment, and based on cessation, and based on giving up, the idea of vasaga. So I'm only going to focus on the idea of viveka, because that's the topic for today. And you can see we haven't even started our spiritual, developing the Noble Eightfold Path if we haven't based, we have not found, made the foundation of viveka, seclusion. So it becomes really relevant to us to incline our mind to seclusion. And when our mind is inclined that way, and then we can, whatever we are doing by body, speech, or mind, all our efforts, everything then becomes a part of the Noble Eightfold Path, part of the 37 Bodhipakkya Dhamma. So this is quite important, right? This is quite exciting. Why we need to incline our mind towards seclusion. So another thing that I would like to mention is also like often when we talk about seclusion, the first thing that comes, or seclusion or solitude, is going away into a peaceful place, going onto a retreat, going into a monastery, going somewhere that is quiet, away from the hustle and bustle. But the Buddha says, but that's just one small aspect. But even if you're far away in a very quiet place, but if you're having sensual thoughts in your mind, then the Buddha says you are not in seclusion, even though the outside is a beautiful, quiet place. Even if your mind is busy thinking about sensual things, then the Buddha says it is not secluded. So I would like to read out another really small extract, and this is from the Migajala Sutta from the Samyutta Nikaya. It is SN 3563 for you to have a look at later. The Buddha says, there are Migajala, forms cognizable by the eye that are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, tantalizing. If a bhikkhu seeks delight in them, welcomes them, and remains holding on to them, delight arises. When there is delight, there is infatuation. And when there is infatuation, there is bondage. Bondage by the fetter of delight. Migajala, a bhikkhu, is called one dwelling with a partner. Migajala, even though a bhikkhu who dwells thus resorts to a forest and a groves or remote lodgings where there are few sounds and little noise, desolate, hidden from people, appropriate for seclusion, he is still called one dwelling with a partner. For what reason? Because craving is his partner, and he has not abandoned it. Therefore, he is called one dwelling with a partner. So this is really important for us to reflect as well, because what happens to us, we spend a lot of time organizing ourselves to go on a retreat, go on meditation. But then once we go down into the cushion, what happens? The echoes of our sensual world comes and get us, right? So it is important to notice that even it is not just about being in a secluded, quiet place. That is essential, but that is not the only thing. It is really important to restrain our mind, look after our mind, to protect and guard it from the sensual world. Otherwise, we are still not inclining towards seclusion. And the Buddha actually really praised so much the importance of seclusion. There is another beautiful sutta. Where is that sutta? I think it is in Nagita Sutta from Anguttara Nikaya, that is in the book of 6, sutta number 42. Here the Buddha says, like, he's wandering through the country, and with a big retinue of monks, and he sees a monk sitting perfectly upright and in perfect meditation posture, meditating. And you can see that he's probably meditating really well. It looks like that, in perfect posture. But he's sitting at the edge of the forest. So edge of the forest is next to the village, right? So it's at the boundary. So the Buddha doesn't look happy. He shakes his head and said, I'm not happy with this monk. So the monks were wondering what's wrong, because he looks like he's in good meditation, in right posture and doing well. And then the Buddha goes inside the forest. And then deep inside the forest, he sees another monk who's meditating, but he's full of sloth and torpor, like falling this way and falling that way, clearly not meditating, not in the perfect posture. The Buddha smiles and says, oh, I'm happy with this monk. And all the other monks are really confused. Why is Buddha saying like that? He wasn't happy with the monk who looked like was meditating well, but was sitting at the edge of the forest. But the Buddha was happy with the monk who's, clearly under the sloth and torpor, but was deep in the jungle. And this is what the Buddha said. He says, take a monastic on the edge of a village, sitting in a deep state of still meditation. I think to myself, soon a monastery worker, a novice, a fellow monastic will make this venerable emerge from stillness. I'm not pleased with that monastic is staying in the edge of a village. Take a monastic in the wilderness, sitting nodding while meditating. I think to myself, soon this venerable will dispel that sleepiness and lethargy and will focus on the unified perception of wilderness. I'm pleased with that monastic, is saying in the wilderness. So this is just to show how much the Buddha appreciated being away from the busy world and being in seclusion. So this is important, but it is also important to remember that it is not just about physical seclusion, but it is also about that mental seclusion, the protected mind. And I also want to read one other sutta to highlight this point, because this is not only just for the lay people, but also for the monastics. This comes up in the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 122, that is Mahasunyata Sutta. In this sutta, those of you know this sutta, you might remember all the monks were doing some sewing, and they all got into talking. So they were all like really busy, very loud, socializing. And while sewing, they got really a bit too excited. And the Buddha was passing by, and he was not pleased with the behavior of the monks. So then he called Venerable Ananda, and he says this, the Buddha says this to Venerable Ananda. Ananda, a bhikkhu does not shine by delighting in company, by taking delight in company, by devoting himself to delight in company, by delighting in society, by taking delight in society, by rejoicing in society. Indeed, Ananda, it is not possible that a bhikkhu who delights in company, takes delight in company, and devotes himself to company, who delights in society, takes delight in society, and rejoices in society, will ever obtain at will, without trouble or difficulty, the bliss of renunciation, the bliss of seclusion, the bliss of peace, the bliss of enlightenment. But it can be expected that when a bhikkhu lives alone, withdrawn from society, he will obtain at will, without trouble or difficulty, the bliss of renunciation, the bliss of seclusion, the bliss of peace, the bliss of enlightenment. So this is also another important point. So how we live our life is also very important if we want to find true happiness and peace. If we are people always seeking, socialization, seeking to talk to other people, being amongst people, that becomes a hindrance. There is a time that we need to do that. We need to be with our family, be at work, but we need to look after as well. We have to, have a balance with these things if we really want to incline our mind. Because if we want to do that and then want to also incline our mind, it's not going to happen. It's nothing wrong with us. It's just that we are not putting in the right courses. So if we want to incline our mind towards seclusion, towards renunciation, towards enlightenment, then it is important to look after ourselves, our behaviors, our engagements with the world. So this is also quite important even for us monastics too, because this can happen to us. Clearly it happened to even the monastics even at the time of the Buddha. So, so having said all of these things, then I would like you to just think about the mind. Like, what is it like when we have a lot of desires in our mind, when the mind is worrying about things, when the mind is agitated, yeah, when we want things? What is it like? We are very familiar with this state, right? Because this is our, most of the time, what our mind is like. But when we reflect like that, we realize it's actually a state of suffering, right? Whenever the mind is moving outside, wanting something, worrying about something, desiring something, it is a state of suffering. Compare that to a time when you were quite contented, quite happy, don't want anything, just happy just to be here. Yeah. When the mind is, even for a little while, when it is still, when it's quite delightful. Yeah, it is quite blissful. So sometimes we need to take a little bit of time to observe the behaviors of our mind. Yeah. I also like, I hope you don't mind me reading too many suttas, but suttas are really beautiful. They bring out the meaning so beautifully. And it's very inspiring the way the Buddha puts these things together. And this reading is from the Sutta Nipata, but Sutta Nipata has many translations. I'm going to use a translation by Leslie Fowler and Tamara Dietrich. They are two Australian authors. The reason why I like this might not be accurate word for word translation, so you can also read Bhante Sujata's translation from Sutta Central and Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation as well. I actually looked up. They're quite close, but what is beautiful about this is when the Buddha says a verse is to bring up an emotion, right? So when there's a beautiful verse, if you understand the verse, if it is presented to you in a language and in a way that it brings an emotion, then it does the job. So sometimes, when it's written in a little bit poetic way, it's quite nice. This is Guhattaka Sutta. This is in the Attaka Vagga. It's called the cave in English. And this is how it goes. Worldly desires, so hard to give up. Look at you, stuck in a cave, surrounded by every kind of form, sunk in murkiness, far from freedom. Your longings tie you up in knots. Sense pleasures snare you. You yearn now, as you did in the past and will in the future. No one else can release you. You are greedy, intent on desire, infatuated by desire, mean. You are on the wrong track, heading for a bad time. You wail, what will happen to me when I die? I see you trembling with desire for a different state of mind, a sad wretch, muttering in the mouth of death. Look, you're self-obsessed, flapping about like a fish in a drying creek. It's quite beautiful, right? We can laugh at this, but this is us. Yeah, this is not that far from how our mind goes about in most of the time in the world. But it's quite nice sometimes to reflect back and see what are we doing. Yeah, we're far away from true happiness, true peace, and really covered and drenched in suffering. But the thing is, there is a way out. There is something else that we can look for happiness and peace. And it is fully worthwhile, pursuing that. So, so then take a moment to see, the benefits of this mind. I really like this idea of mind being restrained. Yeah, we are all quite good at restraining our actions, right? Because we are quite concerned about what other people might think at the very least. And we are concerned about our karmic consequences. So we are quite good guarding our body reactions. We are moderate with our speech. Sometimes we lose it, but we still try, if we are practitioners, to look after our speech as well. But what about the mind? Yeah, we are all quite unrestrained, right? Because we think nobody can see my mind. I can think whatever I want, and that's okay. But it is not okay, right? This is the biggest problem. It is the mind restraint, which is most important, because whatever we think and ponder, that breaks into speech and action. So restraining our mind is really important. And itself, restrained mind is quite beautiful. That's why, like when we think about a mind that is restrained, a mind that is, it is blissful, it is delightful. So we have to sometimes tell ourselves, our mind is like a little child. Sometimes you have to sort of tell it stories, tell it and show it the beauty of seclusion, the beauty of a restrained mind. That is when it realizes, oh yeah, it is actually good to do this. The way that I'm heading, the way I'm using my mind is actually not beneficial. It is causing me a lot of suffering. But this is within my control. Yeah, I can do something about it. So why don't I do that? Yeah, so like inspiring ourselves is really important, because how do we do anything in our life? Yeah, we are driven by emotions, right? We are emotional beings. We are beings who feel things, and we are driven by our emotions. Whatever we want to do in life, this is how we do it. I mean, think about a day when you are really, really tired, maybe come home from a really busy day and thinking, oh, don't ask me to do anything. I'm not going to get up from my chair because I'm so tired. But then you get a call from somebody who you really love, maybe one of your really good friends, and they're in trouble. So what happens? You suddenly jump up, right? Because you're inspired, you're motivated to go and help your friend, because you're driven by your emotions to want to help somebody who you really care about. And you even forgot how tired you were. And some from somewhere, energy came. You could even drive to the other side of town, go through all traffic, even in the middle of the night, to help somebody when you're motivated, right? This is just to show how when you have inspiration, energy comes up. And not only that, you're very alert, you're very focused on the task at hand to get there and help your friend. You know what to do. And then, of course, you also investigate, what do I have to do? How do I do it? All these things. So what am I bringing up here? The 4 things that I'm bringing up here are the 4 iddhipadas, yeah, chanda. That is inspiration. That is what drives you to do anything in life. Yeah, virya, that is the energy. It's a natural thing. Once you are inspired, energy comes up. Chitta, that is that awareness, the alertness of the mind, the focus into achieving the goal at hand. And vimamsa, that is the investigation. So it is really important, like even if it is a worldly goal, it is there, but of course, iddhipadas are usually mentioned with the highest attainments of the path. But if you look at it, this is important even at the very start. If you want to incline your mind to meditation, to seclusion, it is really important to develop inspiration, to see its benefits, to see why you need to do this. Yeah. So taking time to inspire, that's why I read a few suttas, and I will talk a little bit more about these things. So inspiration is very necessary if you want to achieve. And what else did I have? So another really important thing, we are coming close to probably ending, but one thing I want to also mention is how do you, what is your relationship to your meditation object is also very important. So after we have inclined ourselves, inspired ourselves to want to meditate, then we still sometimes have problem. And what's the problem? The problem is sometimes it's really hard to stay with the meditation object, right? This is, we all have experienced this from time to time. And the problem is we don't sometimes have a good relationship with our meditation object. But the way that the Buddha mentions is there is another 4 terms that comes up. That is pakandati, pasidati, santitati, vimucchati. So pakhandati again is inspiration, right? You are eager, you are inspired to do that. So that comes up. So if it is breath meditation or any other type of meditation, it is really important that your mind inclines, finds inspiration, that you are eager to do it. That is pakhandati. Pasidati is that you are confident. You have confidence that this is going to lead you to peace. This is going to lead you to enlightenment. So sometimes that clear understanding, how does it work? How can watching breath get me enlightened? You know, this is why we do all the sutta studies, the discussions, all these things, and your own reflections back to see how it is making you to eradicate the defilement. So having that confidence in your meditation object is also important if you want to stay with it. So pakhandati, pasidati, santitati is that you become steady inside. So then after practicing it again and again, you become very familiar with the object. You are at ease with it. You can be settled inside. And adimucchati is that you are quite stable and you're still inside. Yeah, you're very well established in your practice. So again, so this brings up to the really important practical aspect. If you want to incline your mind to seclusion, which in its real deep sense to deep meditation, then it is really important to take some time to develop a very positive relationship to your meditation object. Now think about a time when you are with one of your best friends, somebody who you really like to hang out with, somebody you really appreciate being with. When you are with somebody like that, have you noticed whether are you ever dull? Are you ever sleepy? Are you ever irritated? You're not, right? If you are with somebody who you really like, a good friend, your mind has a certain elation, certain kind of pamoja, uplift. Yeah, you are quite happy, you are quite alert, and you enjoy being there. Yeah, being with this person. Why is that? Because you have seen good qualities of this person, the benefits of being around this person. You have a lot of love, a lot of affection, a lot of trust, yeah, and a lot of respect for your friend. So these are important things, like in a good friendship, a deep friendship, somebody who you really like to be with. These are qualities that you have. And that is why it is so easy to spend hours or days with somebody who you really like. So we can also put this kind of same idea towards our meditation object. This might sound a bit funny, but it is not really. You know, if you really want to meditate and be with your object, it is important to develop a deep friendship with it. So to have that kind of respect, a love for that object, you know, and trust that it is going to take you there. So that is again, in other words, the same thing, pakhandati, pasidati, santitati, adimucchati. So sometimes we don't do these kinds of stuff. We just learn a technique, we just go and sit and we just start to watch the breath or whatever reflection that you're doing, whatever subject you're doing. We do that and we realize it's not getting us anywhere at times. Yeah, and that's nothing to do, not with the technique or nothing wrong with us. It's just we have sometimes forgotten some preliminary steps. So it is really important to develop a very positive relationship with your meditation object. And also you can have a couple of different objects, because sometimes your mind is in a different state, in a different mood. So it's probably not in a mood to be with this type of friend. It's true, right? It's sometimes you want to be with one kind of friend, and then at another time you want to be your mood is such that you appreciate another kind of friend. So like that, you can also have a couple of different meditation objects, so that then when you have a good relationship with all of those, then you can use whichever one is helpful. That way it is actually possible to gain success in meditation, to have more time, and you actually feel happy. You want to meditate, you enjoy meditation. And this is where again the four Iddhipadas are important. So of course, once you have inspiration, you get energy. You say, wow, this is my meditation time. I can't wait, And when you then your mind doesn't go anywhere else, because you are very happy being there doing that. So virya chitta comes up. Then at the end of each meditation, reflecting back, this is paccavekkhana, reflecting back, how was it? And learn from your mistakes or successes. Then you also know, this worked, this didn't. So next time you know what to do. So when you do that, that is vimamsa. When you do that kind of process, that is when you become a connoisseur of seclusion. So I hope, I'm sure these are not anything that you didn't know, but my job is to sort of remind and hopefully inspire and bring in a few suttas to just bring that idea of seclusion to the forefront of your mind. And I shall stop here and maybe open for questions, if that is okay.
Thank you very, very much. Sadhu, sadhu.